Yo, the Gay Ranger is back. Geez, I've done a transmission, some cylinder heads, and some other stuff I'm trying to forget about this thing. It should be on its last leg pretty quick, but I guess I still have to fix it for the guy. There's a weep hole that's all wet. It's leaking coolant. So the water pump's gonna have to get replaced. I got a problem though. Besides the water pump, I put a pressure tester on it. This thing's trying to make a fool out of me. I can just blow a little bit. Blow the coolant off. And you can see it'll start to leak. There it goes. So yeah, this thing's trying to trick me. I could have put a water pump in this thing and they'd come back on me with a small leak. So I get to do a timing cover. On these Gay Rangers too, they tell you to remove the oil pan. And on this particular vehicle, you got to take the engine out to get this oil pan out. It doesn't come out any other way. Some people say remove the transmission. Whatever, I'm not doing any of that. It's just pouring out of that water pump though. So I got two fun leaks and I'm going to try to do this without removing the oil pan. Wish me luck. I'm going to want to drain this radiator, and on the passenger side on the bottom of the radiator there's a 19 millimeter. I'm just going to loosen this up until it starts drooling and let it drain out. I'll be removing this intake pipe. There's a little green tab on this. Just push down, it comes out. A regular screwdriver, mass airflow sensor wire. There's a little red tab on here. Gotta pull it back. And you should be able to push this in and get it out. I gotta get this clutch fan off next. This is a 22 millimeter hex and it's reverse thread. So it's righty loosey, lefty tighty. There's a number of ways you can get this off. Like this is a Harbor Freight chain tool. You can take the belt off and you can wrap it around there and hold it and put a 22 millimeter on there and pound on it with a hammer until it breaks free. Or I don't know, you might be able to take this belt and wrap it around there somehow so it doesn't move. Good luck with that. I'm a fan of air hammers. So I got a long 3-foot chisel on an air hammer. This is how I get a lot of different fan clutches off. Just like that. Any other way, it's kind of a pain in the butt. Okay, that's gonna sit in there. I have two 10 millimeters on this fan shroud. I should be able to hold on to this fan, pull this shroud up, and take both of these out at the same time. If I'm lucky. Ooh, I can get this out now. Anytime you store a clutch fan too, you want to leave it so this is faced up. Don't make it, don't go face down like this or lean it like this, because there's fluid in here that can drip out. Sometimes it happens on some clutch fans. I'm going to take off this radiator now. I got a hose right here. I'm going to tighten this drain back down. For these tranny lines, I got a 1 16th wrench because I don't want this to turn. This is a 16 millimeter. These are probably going to leak a little transmission fluid. I got some band clamps on these radiator hoses. Ooh, that one actually locked in. Well, that I got those out. I got two more 10 millimeters for the radiator. There's There's a little clippy thing right here for the transmission lines, but you just give it a good yank, it'll come out. 15 millimeter gets the belt off. Got a bracket for this low side air conditioning hose, hiding a 13 millimeter. And it sucks because there's a bolt behind it that's spinning. Oh shit. Frickin' Fords, man. I swear. They gotta stop doing this mental shit with the nuts on the bolts and shit. I gotta cut this bracket. I don't want to, but Ford makes a lot of junk. Well, nothing else seems to work. So here's how I'm gonna deal with this pain in the ass. Sawzall. Can't work on a Ford without a Sawzall. Just gotta make sure I don't hit any wires or anything. What a bunch of crap. Give me my shit. There, I got that bracket off. Ha ha ha. Funny ha. Gonna get this air conditioning out of my way now. I got a silly little clip here. I gotta pull this tang open a little, pop this off. There's a silly little clip behind here. Pop it off. 13 millimeters. Got a 13 millimeter on this tensioner. This is a 15. I believe there's 3 bolts that are 13 millimeters. 2 of them you can't see and one of them's right here. I got another nut on a bolt right here, 13 millimeter. And that one's not turning, which is great. Fuel line bracket. I'm under the wheel well for the last bolt. Some bracket for some big huge wire loom. Got a real long 3-foot extension. I got one more wire I want to try to get off of this air conditioner. It broke. I just want to do that because I don't want it pulling on any of these wires. I just kind of gingerly put this AC hose over the alternator, and then I just kind of pulled this out of the way a little bit so I can get at all of that junk. Okay, now I can get this piece of joke off. Ooh, now it wants to come off all of a sudden. Well, my hacksaw must have done something for that. It didn't want to come off before. Jesus. What a bunch of crap. The 9-foot long water pump bolt. Yeah, this thing just sat and spun. That's not fair. And I took a hacksaw to it and then I wanted to come off. I couldn't get a wrench behind here either. What a bunch of crap. 10 millimeters on here. Built Ford tough, I guess. Got a little clip here for the crank sensor. Unplug that. These are 7 millimeters. I'm going to get this crankshaft off of here, this sensor, because I don't want to wreck it. Hose clamp. One more hose clamp. I'll take this water pump off next for fun because I'm having so much fun. There's like 4 8mm and all the rest are 13s. Oh, I forgot one. There's one more 8mm hiding on me. Way down under. Get this damn hose off of here. $13mm pulley bolt. So there's 4 of these 13mm. And this rusty piece of crap can come off. Okay, 1, 2, 3, fun. I was thinking about leaving this lower radiator hose on, but I better take that thing off. Harmonic balancer nut, the 21mm. Now I gotta make a contraption to get this harmonic balancer off. I got a harmonic balancer puller, and I use the bolt in the in one of the rods out of that. Then I got a steering wheel puller, harmonic balancer puller, old Craftsman piece of crap that I put on that, so that works. And then these 2 bolts that were in the bottom of that power steering bracket I'm going to use for the harmonic balancer. I've had this Craftsman puller for over 20 years. It's about stripped out. I hope it still works. Oh no, it don't work no more. Oh, it broke. Oh. Yeah. What do I do? One more thing I need to junk. I have a different contraption I can try to use. Yeah. Almost don't have enough room. Ooh, I got it. I got it. Oh, damn it. Damn Ford making me bleed. There's 2 8mm on the oil pan. I got to use a 6-point. I tried a 12-point and they're all stripped out. Like somebody's done this before or something. Wouldn't surprise me. There's only 240,000 miles on this old truck. The old boring Ford truck. There's one 10mm here. There's 2 17mm. Maybe this one will take a leak on me too. Nope. Now when I go ahead and peel this cover back, I just gotta hope and pray that I don't tear the gasket. Yeah, the gasket's stuck on there. I'm just going to be real careful. Try to grab onto it and... Ooh. Ooh. Well, it's still there. Okay. Where'd the gasket go? Oh, yeah, it's been dripping for quite a while. Wow. I'm going to have to change the oil on this because obviously as soon as you pull this cover off, there will be coolant going down into this oil pan. But for right now, I'm going to suck out as much of this as I can. I'm just using a brake bleeder. I'm going to clean this gasket surface as best as I can, of course. And on this sealing surface right here for this gasket that's actually coming apart and moving around, which is pretty bad. I'm not going to touch any of this. Well, I just contradicted myself because I'm peeling away at some of this loose gasket material. Yeah. Wow. That's not cool how that's moving around like that. Eesh, old shit. Well, I'm going to run it. I just got to make sure that this is super clean on these corners and these ends. And I'm just going to fill it with more gasket sealant. And then squish it down. I'm going to stick a couple of rags down here. I don't want any material falling down in the pan. Well, anyways, I'm going to get this camera out of my way and clean this crap up. I got my little brake bleeder going crazy. I put a little tiny hose down in that bolt. That one goes through into a water jacket. It's the only one. And I'm sucking out as much coolant as I possibly can because I don't want anything coming out of this system when I'm trying to put this back together. Now I cleaned this gasket surface best as I could. I hit it with brake cleaner a whole bunch. And I hit this with brake cleaner and blew it out probably about 5 or 6 times to make sure I got all the oil out of it. And this gasket, it came loose from the plastic. So I just got under there a little bit with a pick and I just stuck gasket sealant on both of the corners where it was loose. And I just pressed it down. And I'm going to let that sit for a whole day. I'm going to let it set up really nice. So I'm not putting this cover back on until tomorrow morning because I want that stuff to be nice and set up so it doesn't move, because this moved a lot. I cleaned up the gasket surfaces on the timing cover as best as I can. This I hit with a wire wheel. And I just mocked this up after cleaning it all in the oil pan. I put this thing on just to make sure it'd go in without the gasket moving or folding up. And I ended up putting chamfers on these pinholes so they line up a lot better that way. And on these gaskets too, I ended up, there was gasket sealant hanging out right here. I ended up just cutting them corners a little bit because I didn't want it folding up underneath the cover. And I cleaned all of this under here really good. I pulled it back just a hair just to make sure there's no oil anywhere under there. And I just hosed it with brake cleaner and sprayed it with shop air a bunch of times. And then, yeah, my gasket sealant I put underneath here. It's a little loose right here, but the rest of it's really good, so I'm going to leave it. It should be fine. I don't think it's going to pull in much. It goes in though. Initially I was thinking I was going to have to loosen up like 3 or 4 oil pan bolts in the front just so this pushes down a little bit more, but it goes in, so I don't know how much these bolts tighten all this up, but we'll see. I hope this doesn't leak. I hit this with emery cloth just to get a little bit of the rust ring off for the dust seal. Usually emery cloth doesn't do much of anything. Now I gotta change out this seal. I put just a little bit of this #1 Forma gasket sealant on there. Nasty brown stuff. Just a little bit for insurance. They usually never leak, but see, I didn't even put enough on it for it to squish through. Little insurance. I like insurance. I got high-tack gasket sealant I'm going to use for this timing cover gasket. I'm just going to put it on the engine side because I don't want this thing moving around. This can stay and dry pretty much indefinitely. I'm going to need to put a light coat on the block side. Now if this stuff doesn't stick, that means there's too much oil on here and you got to get it all off. Can't have any oil on here or coolant. It's really hard to see under here. I get it though. I get it. Okay, I got stringy high-tech cobwebs all over the place. Kind of cool, in a way. Gonna let that set up for a little bit. I don't know, 10 minutes maybe. Now for this hole right here, it goes into the water jacket. I cleaned all the oil off of this bolt really good. Some people use Permatex on these. I got some liquid PTFE thread sealant. I'm going to put a little bit of that on here. Fill these threads up pretty deep. I'm going to put a couple rolls of thread tape on it too. I'm going to put just a very fine bead of ultra gray Permatex on here. Just a really small amount where that gasket's going to sit. I let this sit and set up for a very long time. I actually went and had some breakfast. So I'm going to try to put this on here nice and carefully. Start these pins first. Gonna tuck them corners in, stick it down. Make sure all these holes line up. Push it all down. Looks like I got them. I'm just gonna double check, make sure I can thread these in. I got about 7 minutes to work with before this sealant starts to tack up. I'm going to pull this gasket back, lift it up just a little bit, try to get under here, put a nice bead under here. I'm going to put a good gob on top too. Alright, that's good and messy. God, I hope this seals. I put a little bit of gasket sealant, just a small amount, on the water jacket sides, just to fill up the imperfections on there because it's used. Stick that on there. First thing I'm going to do is make sure that these bolts down here start. That don't feel right at all. That one down there doesn't start, so I'm going to start these. Snug these down a little bit. Try this one again. No, this thing ain't right. Nope, it's not starting. Threads are probably all boogered up. It's the wrong time to be chasing threads, but what choice do I have? I got a 6x1mm thread chaser here. I'm going to try to clean this up. Damn it, man. Feels completely wrong. Yeah, I tightened them bottom bolts down on the oil pan, and it looks like this thing just squished gasket sealant just ever so slightly. I think it's going to seal. Now these bottom bolts I want to torque to 6 foot-pounds, which is like 72 inch-pounds. Yeah, all the little 6x1s I want to do 6 foot-pounds. And all the other bigger bolts I want to do anywhere from 15 to 22 foot-pounds. I'm going to do 18 just because it's in between those numbers. On this new water pump, I'm not going to get too fancy with this. I'm just going to gob some ultra gray on here. Just a fine bead is all I need. I should be able to do both sides with just this little amount. I'm just going to smear it around until both sides are coated. I could use high tack or something, but I like smearing stuff around. Just a little bit, just enough to cover the paper type stuff. Yeah, it's just barely coated, and that's fine. I don't know, they got factory sealant on these, and they tell you that you should put sealant on them, but I don't understand why, because none of these are going through the water jackets. So I just put a couple bolts in here just to keep the gasket lined up. Try to stick this in here. No, I gotta get this stupid hose on. Start the dumb hose. I'm just gonna snug these up a little bit with a drill. I'll torque all these down to 18. I'm gonna do the very ends first, where the timing cover and the water pump seal on the block. I'll do these 4, and then I'll get on to the rest of them. Then I'll check them again. Usually this gasket will squish a little bit. And I can final torque all these little guys, these little 6 foot-pound jobbies. Now that all that's on, this is where my frustration and anxiety levels severely drop. I'm going to put a little bit of oil in this seal. Probably should have done this before. I don't want to get any oil on this crankshaft either, so I'm just going to put a couple drips in there. And I'll put some on here too, just a little bit. Just coat this a little. Then I'll be down with more Permatex. If you can see, there's a lip right here. I want to put the Permatex on the inside, especially this keyway. So it'll help seal this. I'm just going to slather some in here after that taper. That's just a little insurance, just because If any oil gets past that key, it won't run past the bolt and leak on the outside. If it does leak, it'll just be a really small one. And I'll put this on here as much as I can, line it up with the key. The threads on here are 14 by 1.5. I don't have a harmonic balancer installer that's going to work for this thing. You can use a bolt if you want, a longer one, but I can put this in all the way and it doesn't start. Now you want to get at least, I'd say a good half a dozen threads, a good 6 turns if you're going to drive this in that way. I'm not going to do that though. Probably got to go to the hardware store and get a bolt if you want to. I'm not going to do that though. I got an air hammer because air hammers are always good Ford tools. A lot of people might tell you, oh, don't do this because you're going to wreck the thrust bearing. Well, I've done this a ton of times and you won't. And the whole reason why is if this thing's bottomed out and you start hammering on this thing with an air hammer, you might be able to do a little bit of something to the thrust bearing on the crankshaft. But when you're pounding in a harmonic balancer, you're not going to do that because all that added force, instead of forcing impact up against the thrust bearing, the force is going to get taken up by the harmonic balancer and drive it in. So I'm going to get it in just far enough to where it's almost bottomed out, or just when it feels bottomed out, and then I'm going to stop so I don't wreck any thrust bearing. Like I say, I shouldn't anyways. Like so. Now this bolt will go in real nice. Well, I got a couple of these bolts from this bracket I'm going to put in here. Get a good amount of threads on that. I'm doing this for a crankshaft holder. I want to torque this bolt to 89 foot-pounds. So they say, and they say you want to loosen it 1 full turn. I don't understand why. I'm just going to loosen it until I don't need to loosen it anymore. Make sure the thing's loose. Then they say I want to tighten this to 37 foot-pounds. Now I get to turn this an extra 90 degrees. Putting a jack pole on here. I'm just going to go real slow because I don't want them bolts to bend or anything. That should be about right. Now the rest of this really isn't as crucial as most people would like to think it is, so I'm just going to start slamming this thing together. These really don't come loose very easily because of the opposite rotation of the thing, so it kind of always is tightening up on itself, but I'm just going to give this a couple of wraps. Just get it a little bit tight. You don't need to get carried away with those at all. Oh, the owner's going to love me for this because he's a clean, green, recycling, hippie, reggae kind of guy. Then again, maybe he'll fire me for such nonsense. I don't know. But I'm taking his old crap and I'm putting it right back in here. It's actually really fresh new stuff because this thing's been leaking for a long time. And for a Save the Planet hippie guy, he sure is riddling the damn whole countryside full of a lot of ethylene glycol. Got a little filtering action going on here with the rag. It'll be good. Well, it took all that and it's still got a little left over in here. Let's see how much coolant I got in this oil pan. If there's any coolant in here, it'll come out right away because the coolant's heavier than the oil. Man, these threads are butched on here. Just a bunch of old shit. Yeah, there's a good amount of coolant in here. Yeah, not much. It's all gone already. Nice clean oil. I don't think I'm going to change out the filter because it looks like he did an oil change just not too long ago. Well, I put 4 quarts of oil back in it. Let's see if this puking thing runs. Ooh, like brand new 240,000 mile junk. I'm going to run it a little while, burp the system. Taking in a little antifreeze right now. And call this thing a job. Okay, bye.